Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Amomynous. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Debbie Garcia. She talks about her love of working in television and radio, and after losing her career during the pandemic, she goes out on a limb and starts her own business. We also talk about how she was inspired to start her own blog called Momsomnia. So stay tuned. We talk about all of that and much, much more. Let's welcome Debbie to the show. Well, welcome, Debbie, to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you on today.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.
Well, I just want to start off and just find out a little bit about you, just about kind of where you were born and raised and what eventually brought you to the area.
Sure. I am originally from New York. I was born in Queens, and when I was 6 months old, we moved out to the suburbs of Long Island. I have an older brother who is 6 years older than me, and I have a younger brother who was 2 years younger than me. And my dad worked in Manhattan, so he was on Wall Street.
Yeah.
And so he did the whole train thing. He did the commuting every day, and my mom was at home with us, which kind of brings me to some other stories that we'll probably get into.
Yeah.
But grew up loving to be in front of the camera, loving to be in front of acting. I was a gymnast for many, many years
Oh,
and got into
wow.
acting. And I thought that I was going to be an actress when I grew up. I said that's it. That's what I'm going to be. I did
Yeah.
tons of musical theater, singing, dancing, acting, and also I was very much into sports. So I was doing gymnastics, I was a cheerleader, I was in the band, I played drums. I was that weird kid that like I am 5'1", tiny. Like I am like any picture I see myself in, I'm like I'm so small next to like people look like giants next to me
Right.
sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I can identify.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
pretty short myself, 5'2", not much taller than you.
Yeah, and it's just a weird feeling sometimes, but you know what you were good at, and I felt like I was just really good about being in front of people.
Yeah.
And jump to when I was to go to college, my dad pretty much told me, "You're not going to college to be an actor. You have to get a real job after school." So I was like, "Well, I'm going to be a broadcaster. I'm going to be on TV." I was huge into broadcasting and loved watching the nightly news, and I was writing journalism. And I ended up going to college, upstate New York. We call it upstate, but it really wasn't. It was like 2 hours north in Poughkeepsie. Uh, and we call it upstate. People from like upstate New York are just like, that's not upstate.
That's
It's
not
like,
really upstate, but okay, we'll
it's a
let
big,
you say it. That's fine.
right. I ended up being really, really good at technical stuff, and I didn't even realize it. So, and I was that kid growing up that would raise my hand for everything. I'll do it. I'll do it. Type A personality. Um, would do things even though I possibly couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Didn't have time to do it, but I would learn. So I was just that person who just got into things. Now knowing that's called anxiety, uh, and
I hear you
perfectionism.
on that.
So that was kind of when I got into television in the background and radio. Worked in Manhattan, worked for Gray Worldwide Advertising as an editor, went to MTV, and I worked as in their news department and was an editor again. And then went to radio and I did producing in radio, which brought me to Nashville in 2023 after 9/11 and 2001. I just didn't want to be in New York anymore.
Yeah.
So I moved to Nashville because it was an opportunity to take part of my job to Nashville as I was the new producer of CMT Radio.
Okay.
And so did that for a very long time, was producing radio, met my husband here, doing theater. And
Awesome. That's really
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, it
What
was
was the production you guys met on?
Music Man. And
Oh, I love
because
it. I love it.
we played
Yes.
opposite each other and we had to dance the Shipoopi together. I don't know if you know the song, but we were partners and he didn't have a car. His name is Carlos. We call him Carles. So I would
Oh,
drive
that's
over.
hilarious. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
love it. So you
So
guys are dancing together in theater and strike up a little romance,
a little bit,
and
yeah.
I love that. That is a really good story, actually.
It's kind of funny because we both came from like loving theater, and it's such a great story that we did like that's how we met. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people who meet that way, but I don't know, we just clicked, and then I went through a round of layoffs because I had to change careers because there was nothing in radio, and went into events, and that's where I found my home right now in the events industry. I've
Okay.
been doing that ever since. I've been opening hotels and venues, and then switched over to the planner end. And that's what I've been doing now.
Tell us a little bit about the process of kind of what you went through in losing employment, because I know my husband and I have been through things like that, and kind of what spurred you to kind of move into wanting to open your own business. Had you ever done that before?
No, the only business we have is we have an Airbnb in our house because our house was too big and we didn't need it. So it's an apartment. We bought the house knowing we would rent it out. So that was really the only business. And before that, I had like a wedding planning business, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to really change the world. I'm just going to do
Yeah.
wedding planning on the side. But what happened was in 2020, we all kind of know what happened with the pandemic, and I got laid off from literally the job I thought I would have forever. I worked for a tech startup in kind of events and music industry, and I was there a year. And I was part of the team. I was their first employee. We were really
Wow.
gelling. We were opening in different cities. We had these plans, and pandemic hits. And I had already been doing the events side as well. I was doing venue sourcing. It's this little job you get paid commission from hotels and help clients book, which is kind of the biggest part of an event is finding where you're going to house it, which is
Yeah.
venue sourcing. So we don't really charge anything to the client, but the hotel pays us. And that's what I was doing. And got laid off from my other job, my full time, and was like, well, what am I going to do? I just lost a job. There's no events. And whatever
Yeah.
I booked, I wasn't making money off of. And I was talking to a client I had just gotten. And I said to her, what are we going to do? Are you still going to book? She's like, yeah, we book like 2 years out. We all thought this was going to be over in 6 months. We're fine.
Yeah.
Little did we know that was not going to happen. But I went into like super, what am I going to do mode? I have two kids at home doing virtual school. My husband, nothing happened with him. He worked in storage facilities, so it was. I guess they had to work. I don't know. It was a very weird gray area. So I'm
Yeah.
home alone. I have no job. That is my identity. That
Yeah.
is like for a lot of us, working and being, in business or working for somebody is our identity. And I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. I always wanted to have my own business. I have literally fought with every one of my bosses because I have questions. I
Yeah.
just want to know more. I just want to, why do we do it this way? Isn't there a better way to do it? And I take on too much, hence the anxiety again. And what else was I going to do? So I just tried this and talked to some people. And one of the things that everyone was talking about was virtual site tours, which are videos or 360 tours of hotels and venues. And we use it
Yeah.
in, other areas of like, we use it for car shopping and real estate. But one of the things was not catching up was the hospitality industry and events. But we were finding that if we were going to book for the future, we needed to do it now.
Yeah.
And there was not one place you can find them. You had to scour the internet, hardly ever found anything. And if you did, you normally had to get it from the salesperson. And everybody
Right.
was laid off or furloughed. So you are literally what we're going to do. And I
Yeah.
talked to someone, they go, well, why don't you just go create that marketplace? Why don't you just start it? And I was like, me? I don't know how to create a website and all that. And I literally brain dumped. I bought a Wix site. I brain dumped my idea. I came up with a logo. Everything that you see, I created. I had some
Wow.
help, just making sure I'm pulling the right colors and all that sort of stuff and getting right vector forms and all that. But all my social media, all my newsletters, everything that I have created really was from my brain. Um,
Wow.
and that's kind of how it all started. And we're 3 years in, we're growing, getting more clients than I've ever thought I would. And that fear that I had was, I
Yeah.
can't do this. What about money? Has definitely subsided a little. Of I believe in myself. I think
Yeah.
that was the one thing I learned more than anything in the world was don't doubt yourself. You are
Yeah.
smart. You are resourceful. You can do anything. And there's days that I don't feel that. There's definitely days that are you're just like, no, I don't want to do this, and why am I putting myself through this? But at the end of the day, I believe so strongly in what I'm doing, and I love it,
Yeah.
that I'm not sure I want to do anything else.
That's amazing. I think that that's really important for, um, any listener to hear about believing in yourself, because I think that there is, well, I know that there's so much in me that there's self-doubt, and, there are times when I'm like, "What am I doing?" I mean, and it's so hard to kind of take that leap of faith and kind of step out there and do something that is just feels uncomfortable. But the fact that you believed in yourself and you knew that it was something that you had experience in, that you didn't have all the answers, running a website and all the things that are involved with it, but you knew at your core that this was something that you knew how to do, and this was a market, this was a niche that people, would really be interested in, and you took that leap of faith. So the fact that you actually even went there and did it, is huge. So I just want to say I applaud you in taking that leap of faith and going for it, because there's so many of us that kind of have that fear of not wanting to go for it because of money and the unknown, and
Yes.
what if I fail, and things like that. um but here you are 3 years later, and you're growing, and it's like you're succeeding in it. So that's amazing. What's the name of the business?
It's called Versatour, which is virtual site tour, all in one word. Came up with that myself too.
I love that. It
And
rolls off the tongue, it's just
Versatour,
yeah.
I get it all the time. Visitor and this and like, I'm like, no, it's virtual site tour.
Yeah.
The logo, it all means something. It's kind of a map pin, and all the colors around it are the colors of television color bars. Now, most kids won't know that right now, but growing up with television being
Yeah.
very, very much a big thing for me, and what we're trying to do is use visuals, was really important. Then it has a play button, like the little arrow in the middle of that. And so it's like three little things that come together to create what Versator is.
That's amazing. Well, congrats. Congrats in just, going for it.
Thank
And here
you.
you are in the middle of started in the middle of a pandemic, when we're all freaking out and not really knowing what the world's going to look like. And you go for it. So I think that I know that that will be inspiration for a lot of women that are listening. And so thank you for sharing that. I know that you mentioned that a few times about anxiety, and I
Mhm.
want to kind of get into a little bit about things that you have talked about on your blog, um, which is called Momsomnia. I love the name. I think it's super, I think you have a gift for that, as far as like names and creating names. So I know when I checked it out and I was reading, if you guys, listeners, if you haven't checked it out, you need to go and look at Momsomnia. But I know you talked about your mental health journey, especially when the pandemic started. Can you share with us sort of, when all that was going down, what you were feeling, and kind of how that led you to want to you know, seek getting on some medication and things like that? Like what all kind of spurred that on?
Well, it goes back way further than that. As a child, my mother dealt with mental health problems. She was bipolar.
Mhm.
And that really kind of happened when she was in her 40s. I think it was onset with, perimenopause and the hormones and
Yeah.
things changing. I think it was growing from her childhood as well. I think she had a lot of trauma in her past. I think she had a lot of loneliness being, stay at home mom and kids growing up. And I think watching that as a kid and watching her journey with medication, it was like right when they were starting, those new drugs with Paxil and this and that, and the
Mhm.
side effects were terrible.
Yeah.
Plus, what also comes along with that is sometimes other things like alcoholism and lying and hiding, and there was a lot that happened when I was preteen. I guess I would
Mhm.
say, that I was maybe sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth grade. It still happened when I went to college and passed. I did leave home a few times, or just didn't go home. I stayed with a lot of friends. I didn't want to deal with it. I
Yeah.
think it was very hard watching your mother go through that. But I think what has happened at the exact same time, at like the same age, was the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And for me, just that fear of, oh my gosh, is this going to happen to me? I was feeling changes in my body as well. I knew that after I had my daughter, who is now 7, that I didn't have postpartum depression. I had postpartum anxiety.
Mm.
I did not sleep. I overproduced milk. She had tongue tie, lip tie. Like, there was just a lot that I was doing that I couldn't deal with, but I didn't get help for that.
Yeah.
What kind of spurred on all of it was, I was very, very lonely, with the kids at home and starting this entrepreneurial journey and not going out and getting in front of people. I would go out to do networking events at least once a month, and I would go to trade shows, and then all of it was gone, and I had nobody to talk to. And one of the first trade shows I went back to, in an educational show, I met a person who I really thought was going to be a friend.
Mhm.
He was, really, really nice person. He was a speaker at the event. We just kind of clicked, but, went our separate ways, but we kept in touch, and he was helping me with my business, and I won a big, it was called Founders Live, and I won the first one in Nashville. It was a tech startup competition. It was
Oh,
99
wow.
seconds, and he was the one who helped me. But at the same time, not me and my husband were not checking in with each other as much. I'm in my own little lonely world, and he's in his, but we were not connecting. We were
Yeah.
not talking to each other, and we were just like, this growth was happening of, well, I have someone to talk to now. And then he was like, ended up thinking that something more happened than
Mhm.
it did. But it
Sure.
did get to a place that was a little inappropriate with the texting that he had. And I grew up with guys. I'm just like, he's just being
Right.
funny. But what happened was, I broke down my car on the way back from Memphis, and he tried to use like the locate on like the Apple devices, and then
Yeah.
saw all these text messages. And that's kind of when a lot of that bubbled up, and I was like, I thought I can trust this person. I thought this was a person. That's when I talked about in my new blog about the isolation and trust. Was I felt like I met a new friend. I really felt like
Yeah.
I met my new best friend. I don't
Sure.
have a lot of close friends. I don't go out with a lot of girlfriends. It's always been the family, or I've had one very close friend. And especially during that time when you had nobody, you're like, I'm going to
Yeah.
latch on to that first person, and they're my new best friend.
Yeah.
That started my husband and I in couples therapy,
Okay.
so we can kind of get past our stuff. And that was
Yeah.
rough. And then I was like, I need to fix me too. And I went into therapy for myself as well, kind of on the tail end of that. But I also found that, uh, don't know if you heard that, but it was my dog.
I love it. I love it. I have a dog too,
That's
and I'm surprised he hasn't come in here yet and tried to climb in my lap, and he's 85 pounds, so I digress, but
Yeah,
yeah.
mine is too. He's a yellow, yeah, yellow lab, but he barks at everything. So he probably saw a leaf fall outside. But
Aw.
anyway, started my journey, but just was not feeling right. I still wasn't like, I was talking and talking and talking, but like there's still like synapses just
Yeah.
not clicking. I was not focusing. And I just was like, I need to do something. And like literally called my doctor in a panic and was saying, I need an appointment. I need to talk to somebody. And
Yeah.
I had suicidal thoughts. I thought the world would be better without me. I was in fear that if I messed up even my entrepreneurial journey, how people would look at me. Oh, she's a failure. Look, my kids thought maybe I was a failure. My husband, he's thinking I'm a failure. I just kept, these thoughts would not stop. And I knew it was the time to kind of get that under control. And I didn't want to take medicine after like I said before, was watching my mom
Yeah.
go through a lot of that and the side effects. And
Yeah.
I've tried it before. I had a little transition period right after college where I went on Zoloft and I was like, I don't feel like myself. I felt like I
Yeah.
was having outer body experiences. I didn't feel like me. So I went on this journey and it did help for the last about year and a half. And
Mhm.
I have to say, I was like, it's time. I was, I don't know where it's coming from. You start to gain weight. You're like, I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
Your body changes. You don't know
Absolutely.
if it's the medication. You don't know if it's
I mean,
this. You're like, I go to the gym 3 times a
hormones,
week. I eat
I
well.
mean,
And,
yeah, the list
you
goes
know,
on. Like, what
and
is it?
hormones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then seeing if I can cut out, I'm on Lexapro. If I can try to just cut maybe that out and feel better about myself now that I am going to the gym, now that I've done a lot.
Yeah.
I'm trying something new, but it's been a week. And I have to say, it's so interesting that this morning was a terrible breakdown I had. And I think that this
Yeah.
is the journey that I'm seeing the anxiety poking a little bit. I can tell that this week I was a little kind of like on edge and I was like, I have to help everybody because that's where
Right.
my anxiety goes. I can't let anybody else feel like they're not getting taken care of, even though
Sure.
I might not be taking care of me.
Yes, exactly. You're
So,
putting everybody else's needs above your own, and then here
yeah,
you are left trying to figure out, okay, how do I actually care for myself at this point now that I've given everything I have
right,
to other
yeah,
people, not
I
just
know.
family,
Yeah, I
but
noticed.
you know.
Absolutely. And I noticed this week I wasn't, taking breaks to feed myself. I wasn't taking breaks to, I was really, really good when I was focused. And now
Yeah.
it felt a little hard. But this morning in particular, I felt like I just had a breakdown and just started crying uncontrollably for an hour.
Yeah. I've been there.
I was like, this is part of it. My husband actually came home, brought me flowers. So it was very, very sweet because he
That's really
knows that I've tried.
sweet.
But yes, there wasn't, it never felt like I was taking medication this time. I felt like it was
Right.
just like, I felt good.
Yeah.
But it was like all the ancillary things that were happening that I was like, I just don't, I don't, maybe this is the thing that's making me gain weight, or maybe this is the thing, maybe I
Right.
don't need it anymore. Where I think that's a big thing in mental health too, which when you talk about the weaning off is when that's the hardest part is because
Yeah.
that's when the bad stuff sometimes happen when you feel fine and
Yeah.
you'll hear a week later someone has hurt themselves or something else is where you don't see it happening. Like my tears today, like what the heck was that about?
You're
Like
right.
out, I
Right.
feel uncontrollable. But you know what? I don't think I've cried, like really cried
Yeah.
in over a year.
Well,
Like
and
really.
crying is a release. And a lot of times if we've bottled things up and we I know being especially a woman in my age 40s that gosh, I mean, who knows when I'm going to probably have a breakdown and just let things out but that release, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, is is it's never a bad thing. I feel like, it's
Right.
always a good thing to be able to let it out. Where it comes from a
Right.
lot of times, I have no clue. But um
Well, I think part of the hardest thing that women go through a lot of the times is trying to be in control of our own bodies. And I think this is a
yeah.
fight that we're going to continuously have all the time. It's do you want to have kids or not? Do you want to wait? I had, my son at 35 and my daughter at
Mhm.
39. So I was
Mhm.
geriatric as
Uh-huh.
well. And
Right, right.
have to go through that. And then, but being on birth control, what that does to your body as well, and your
Absolutely.
hormones, and your mind, and your like everything. Those side effects
Yeah.
are awful, and people don't realize that in order for you to choose not to have a child, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
And how do we go through life and put this burden on women all the time and then say they're crazy? Well, it's because we have to pump ourselves full of drugs in order to make sure that we're normal and don't be emotional, but don't be strong and don't be this and don't be that. And I think
Yeah.
that's what brought me to doing Momsomnia was that
Yes, let's talk
I
about that. I wanna know more about sort of where the idea came from, the name, all of that, because I just love it. I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, so that was interesting because I thought about it years ago. I was going to do a podcast myself as my experience was in radio. I mean, I have a whole setup here. I mean, I can do
Yeah,
it, no
you
problem,
do.
edit everything. was finding the time, and I really wanted to explore a little bit more of my vulnerability. And this really did happen after the journey myself and my husband went on,
Yeah.
um, with that, and then also remembering how hard it was, like the thoughts of remembering having a small child and being up all night and
Yeah.
pumping and breastfeeding and then washing everything and having back and then feeding, making sure you feed yourself and working. And all of those
All of
things
it.
that were those, like, no wonder why I'm a crazy person, or a reason why I have insomnia and I don't sleep at night, was this
Yes.
kept nagging at me. And my husband left his job in November. I think it was November 1st last year, after I even said, you're not getting your due. You deserve
Yeah.
so much more. You were there for 5 years. And I did not ever hesitate. He's lost his job before. I've gone through it. It's always what is best for you now. But at that
Yeah.
time, I was like, wow, this is a lot on me too, because I'm trying to grow a business. Where am I getting my money from? So I started kind
Right.
of spiraling again with that. But I said,
Yes.
I need a place to release. I need a place that I can share what I'm going through, whether people want to read it or not. It's for me. And at
Mhm.
the end of the day, I love that feeling of creation and having a website and sharing what I'm going through. So I think
Yeah.
it was really my way to express myself and dump it. And when I got really busy, it wasn't there. But the last few weeks, I've been writing a lot more. I noticed I had 7 drafts. I was like, what? I have ideas and I don't finish them. I have to get back. And I'm not a procrastinator. So I wanted to make it perfect. Now I realize, like, no, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just share your
No.
journey, share what you have, like, let it out. Nobody, if you're going to watch it, great. I mean, read it, great,
Yeah.
or watch my journey. And if you don't, I don't care.
Talk about some of the things that are on your, blog that you have shared. I saw that there was, like, a travel there was, like, a travel portion, talking about, like, the mental health stuff that you went through. Tell us a little bit about the different things that you are kind of filling us in on and, kinda letting us know about.
One of my first ones was about my daughter falling down and busting her chin open
Oh,
and
wow.
having to get stitches. Now, this
Okay.
was my first experience of having to bring a child, which was very, very lucky, to the ER, and having to, sit there with her. I have to wear a mask because we're
Yeah.
still in this, pandemic, and I'm like getting overheated and I'm trying to keep it. We're not putting a needle in you. We're just dabbing it while they're clearly putting a needle through her chin, and I'm watching her. You don't realize, being a parent, you just like, I'm staying strong, I'm staying strong. And then the moment it was like finished, I was like, do you guys have some water? Like, I felt I was going to pass out.
Oh,
So
like,
yeah, I have that kind of documented, and that was
wow. You had a chance to travel with your kids? I know that you were kind of talking about a little bit about that, like, traveling with them, without them. What are your thoughts on that?
well, as a meeting and event professional and a venue sourcer, I get opportunities to travel all the time. And this is
Yeah.
kind of interesting because I think this is our first fall break we're not traveling, and it's because my husband and I are going to Las Vegas for a big trade show the week after. So like in a week we're
Okay.
leaving. But no, we have gone on several trips. A lot of the trips were close to Nashville, which were your Gatlinburg,
Mhm.
Chattanooga, Memphis. We've been a few times up to Kentucky. I traveled. I have something on the blog about traveling with the kids and taking them by myself and my niece to Holiday World right before school started this year. So I took 3 kids to Owensboro, Kentucky. We got a hotel. I drove to Holiday World. Like, it was me, and I'm going on all the rides with them. No other parent.
Love it.
So yes, and we have gone to international with my kids. We've gone to Cancun. They came with us. And we
Okay.
also went on a cruise last year for my husband's 40th birthday. We took them on the cruise with us.
That's awesome, and how was it traveling with the kids? How old are they, by the way?
So they are 10 and 7 right now.
Okay, because 'cause I've thought about I wanna travel with the kids more and possibly, overseas, internationally, but I'm just trying to figure out when the best time would would be for that, because my daughter's
Yeah.
only 4 or 4.5. So what was it like traveling with them, like to Cancun and just out of the United States?
That I think that it scared them, so they were fine. I think I know that sounds terrible, but they were just like they behaved because they didn't know. And we have flown up to New York plenty of times because that's where my
Yeah,
family still is. So they have been in New York City. We have marched in the St. Patrick's Day parade. They've
love
stayed
it.
at hotels. Like they ride the subway. Like they're cool, and they know pretty well how to behave when we're on vacation. Pretty well. It is keeping them busy. And I think that being on vacation, especially on a cruise, when there is just something to do everywhere, just tires us out. That
Yeah,
you're just, I think that they behave better because they're not in, their normal place all the time and they get to experience new things. So I think they're more concentrated on things.
yeah,
I think traveling with them is way better than not. I think that if I could do it, and I didn't have to teach them, like bring maybe someone to teach them with me,
yeah,
but I would love to just travel the world and and teach them because I think that their experiences that we get, whether that might be a zoo or that might be walking the streets of Puerto Rico at night during Christmas time, or
yeah.
going to Chichen Itza in in Cancun. We went to a cenote. My kids jumped off this 20-foot thing into a cenote, which is, I don't know if you know what
Wow.
that is, but it is a huge, you know, crater filled
Yeah,
with water all
yeah,
over. They're all over Mexico,
yeah,
and watch them do that and experience new things. I think is great as a parent to see, and the
yeah,
excitement in their face, and just like, let's drive you to school today and let's do this. One of the things we do more recently is we're going to a lot more sporting events here.
yeah.
So we're trying to get out, like we'll get free tickets here or there. We'll go. So we love soccer. We go see the Nashville Soccer Club a lot. We went
Yes,
to a
yes.
Predators game the other day, and you know, getting them out there, even in the local
Yeah,
places that are not necessarily, oh, they're just for kids, like taking them to the jump place or whatever. I think that
yeah.
having them experience other things is really, really important for kids. And I can see a
Oh,
difference
yeah.
in them.
Oh, yeah, and we live in such a great area where we have, like, take your pick, basically, you know? Um, I mean, like you said, soccer, hockey, football, I mean, concerts, the list goes on. Um, but even if you are in an area where you don't have a lot of that type stuff, there are things that you can, take your kids to, um, that are still good for them. That's not like the jump place. You know what I mean? That they can experience things outside of the home and have a learning experience. I think we underestimate like what our kids actually would enjoy doing, and they're like little sponges. They like to soak up everything. I love that you're doing that because it's like it's just educational for them, you know? Do your kids actually go to school or are they homeschooled?
Oh no, they go to school. I could never do it. Yeah, the
Same.
moment and we did make that choice when they were allowing the kids to go back to school in the pandemic. We decided to keep them home to still do the virtual school. Now, mind you, my
Uh-huh.
daughter was like 3, 4.
Yeah,
Virtual school was whatever. That was just
yeah,
silly.
yeah.
My son, though, he went through a horrible time. I mean, he was just so bad at adjusting to the virtual school.
Mine
We
too.
had some issues with him. He got violent. I had to reach out to the school. Like, I don't know what to do. Like a social
Yeah,
worker, a counselor, what do we do in this situation?
right.
And he had a lot of struggles last year as well, just behaving. And I think that they're forgetting sometimes how difficult that was for them. I mean, these
Yeah,
kids, especially, we think about how the really young kids that you were saying in your child did not get out during a pandemic.
yeah,
Well, I mean, what if you're a 7, 8 year old and it's all
exactly.
just taken away from you? Like they're aware enough to know,
Yeah,
but for 2 years to just be with me, I would want to get away from me too. So the moment we can send them back to school, we did. It was definitely a struggle, but you know those are the things I have to learn. I was a really my parents might not agree with me, although my vision of myself is I was a very good kid in school. I was afraid to get in trouble.
Yeah, that was
Like,
me.
I'm
That was me.
terrified. I was like, I might not be the best student, but I was always like sitting up front and trying, and I
Yeah.
might never talk back, even though probably talk back to every one of my bosses I've ever had now. But I just don't have that in me. So when I get a call from the school that like my son has done something, I'm like, no, that's not my
Yeah,
son.
never could possibly. Exactly.
It is. It's totally him. He's just like a goofball, and I think that goes back to even he wants friends. And for him
Yeah.
to get friends, it's like you have to stand out. Being the smart kid is not the one that stands out. We all kind of know that. It's always like the goofball that gets the attention, whether that's
Yeah.
good attention or bad
Or
attention.
bad attention.
He
Yeah.
just wants attention. And
Yeah.
that he thrives for that. He thrives for being seen. I
Yeah.
took mine in a different way. Mine was getting on stage or doing
Yeah.
gymnastics. I think that missing out on some of those opportunities at his age really did scar him. He watched a lot of friends move away. He just is in a place sometimes that he's like, well, I just don't have friends. I don't know what to do. And he overdoes it. Like he just
Yeah.
overdoes it when he gets in trouble.
Sure.
So we have to remember, like when we go back to this whole mental health thing, is like, we got to watch out for these kids. Like, I mean,
100%.
we got to take care of ourselves. Yes, we definitely have to put our mask on first. They're right on
Yeah.
that. But we have to be very cognizant of not isolating them anymore. I don't think that is a way to keep us. I feel like that's why I like to travel with them and like to be with them. Yeah. I just decided to start another business too while I was at it because all of it came together. But yeah, so I just know how important travel is to families. And I just went into also being a travel agent. So now I'm not just doing
Really?
meetings and events. I'm also doing, anybody's vacations because these are the connections I have. Why not? Right. So I
Yes.
really want to help, especially families get, really, we don't always have to go to Disney. I mean,
Right.
it's crazy. There's plenty of places to go, small vacations, big vacations.
Absolutely.
Cruises are great. And I feel like I have all this experience and knowledge that if I can help other people, even romantic getaways, if it's just the parents, just understanding that it's really important for your mental health, for your relationships, for your
Yes.
children to see other things than the inside of your house.
You're killing it. You're succeeding in it. And I think that that is inspiration to all of us, to see that, you're doing so well and you've gotten through, yes, are there going to be peaks and valleys and we're kind of going to be up for a while and then kind of have our moments, but the fact that you have kind of gotten through some things and done the counseling and worked on yourself and kind of know like where to identify certain things that kind of take you down that path that you don't want to go way down again. um it's just inspirational, so I want to say thank you for sharing all of that because I know a lot of times it's hard to do that. and uh and I just want to thank you for coming on the show, coming on the podcast. It's been super super enlightening for me and educational, and also, like I said, just inspiring to see all that you are doing and succeeding at. So, yeah, everybody go check out Momsomnia. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Amomynous.